The evening comes softly to a small Greek village, tucked between hills of olive and cypress. The air is still warm from the day, but the light has changed, shifting from the brightness of afternoon into the golden wash of twilight. The sun, sinking toward the western horizon, casts long, slanting rays across the tiled rooftops. Shadows stretch gently over the stone-paved paths, and a hush begins to fall, as if the village itself is preparing to breathe a little more slowly. It is the eve of a feast. Tonight the villagers will honour Dionysus, the god who is both giver of the vine and keeper of joy. His presence is not only in the wine they will pour, but in the laughter they will share, the stories they will tell, and the soft music that will echo in the night air. Yet here, at this quiet moment before gathering, it is not noise or frenzy that marks his arrival, but a kind of reverent anticipation, steady, calm, and deeply human. Around the village, signs of preparation are everywhere. From open doorways comes the faint smell of bread, baked in clay ovens, its crust still crackling as loaves are set upon wooden boards. Women brush flour from their arms as they pull honey cakes from the heat, their sweetness filling the narrow alleys. Children, eager to help, trail behind carrying baskets of figs and clusters of late summer grapes, the skins glistening with a soft bloom. Along one side of the village square, ivy has been cut and woven into garlands. Its green leaves, curling and slightly fragrant, are hung across wooden beams and placed in small circles upon the tables. Ivy is sacred to Dionysus, and so its presence is both decorative and devotional. As the breeze stirs, the garlands sway, their shadows dancing against the pale walls. The sound of footsteps echoes faintly on the stones. Young men carry amphorae of wine, clay jars heavy with the harvest of the previous year. They walk carefully, holding each vessel steady so that not a drop spills. Each amphora will soon be poured into a larger mixing bowl, a crater, where it will be joined with cool water drawn from the village well. For the Greeks, wine was not taken unmixed. To do so was a mark of wildness, of lack of restraint. Tonight, as always, it will be tempered, a drink to be shared slowly in balance. In the quiet centre of the village where the feast will take place, preparations continue. A small altar stands, simple but carefully kept. Its stones are smooth from years of touch and use, darkened where oils have been poured. At its base rests a modest fire pit, and already a faint column of smoke rises into the air. A priest, older now but steady in movement, arranges offerings at its foot, bunches of grapes, sprigs of ivy, small cups of wine, and cakes of barley. The smoke curls upward, and with it the villagers send their thoughts toward the divine, asking for blessings of harvest, of health, and of peace. The air itself carries a sense of change. The warmth of the day lingers, but it is softened now, wrapped in the cool that comes with nightfall. From the hills, crickets begin their patient rhythm. Birds call out their last notes before quieting for sleep. Somewhere beyond, the faint bleating of goats can be heard, herded back to their pens for the night. Every sound is small, gentle, and together they create a harmony of ordinary life, life that will soon pause in celebration. One by one, lamps are lit. The glow of olive oil flames flickers through doorways and windows, sending pools of golden light into the growing dusk. Their scent is faint, sharp, but comforting. The villagers move unhurriedly, their tasks done with care, not haste. The feast is not a grand spectacle, but a gathering, an act of devotion shared among neighbours. Each hand that lays out food, that straightens a garland, that pours wine into a vessel, does so not only for the god, but for the community itself. In the distance, the hills grow darker, their outlines fading against the horizon. Above them, the first stars begin to appear, tiny points of silver scattered across a sky turning from lavender to indigo. For the Greeks, each star held a story. They were reminders that the gods lived not in some distant, unreachable place, but in the very patterns above, always watching, always woven into the fabric of daily life. To look upward now as twilight deepens is to feel that connection between earth and sky, between human and divine. The children, restless with excitement, chase one another through the square. Their laughter rings out light and quick until mothers gather them close, brushing ivy leaves into their hair, smoothing tunics, guiding them toward the long tables where the meal will soon be shared. The sound of their play softens, and in its place rises the low hum of conversation. Neighbours greeting neighbours, voices warm with familiarity. And as night fully arrives, the mood of the village shifts. It is no longer simply a place of work and routine, but a place transformed by ritual. Tonight, under the blessing of Dionysus, it will be more than just a village. It will be a sanctuary of food, of music, of community, a space where the divine and the everyday meet in the simplest of ways. The feast has not yet begun. The wine has not yet been poured, the lyres not yet strummed, the stories not yet spoken aloud. But already, in this quiet twilight, there is a sense of peace, of fullness, of expectation. Tonight the god of the vine will be honoured, not with wild abandon, but with steady devotion. And the villagers, each in their own small way, prepare themselves to receive the gift of his presence. The sun has nearly disappeared beyond the hills, yet the village stirs with quiet energy. Preparation for the feast has been underway since the early afternoon, long before the first shadows of twilight stretched across the square. For the Greeks, honouring Dionysus is not merely an act of devotion. It is a rhythm woven into their year, a ritual that demands care, patience, and attention to detail. In one home, a woman kneels beside the clay hearth, her hands dusted with flour. She moves slowly, rhythmically, as she presses dough into shape upon a smooth wooden board. The dough is soft and pale, made of barley and wheat ground earlier that week, kneaded with water drawn from the village well. With each turn and fold, her movements echo those of countless generations before her, mothers, grandmothers, ancestors who kept the hearth and prepared the same loaves. Tonight, these breads will be set upon the table, broken into pieces, dipped into olive oil and shared among neighbours. Their preparation is not hurried but steady, each loaf set carefully aside to rise, each surface brushed with honey to add sweetness in honour of the god. Beside her, small honey cakes take shape. These are smaller, delicate offerings, made not only for the villagers to enjoy, but also for Dionysus himself. Honey, golden and fragrant, is one of the oldest gifts given to the gods. Its sweetness is eternal, preserved long after it is gathered. As the cakes are set into the heat of the clay oven, the air fills with their aroma, warm and rich. Outside, passers-by catch the scent and smile, knowing that the time of the feast draws near. Elsewhere, a pair of boys carry baskets heavy with grapes. Their skins are dark, glossy, nearly black in the fading light, while others are pale green and translucent, the last harvests of the season. The boys struggle with the weight, their laughter spilling out as they shift the baskets between them. These grapes will be laid upon the tables, not pressed into wine, but eaten whole, symbols of the god's abundance, reminders of the vine's gift. Each cluster is handled gently, as though even in its ripeness it still carries a sacred presence. Near the edge of the square, young men labour with amphorae of wine. Each vessel is tall, narrow at the base, and sealed with resin to preserve the liquid within. They lean their shoulders into the task of carrying them, one hand steadying the neck, the other supporting the rounded body. The clay is cool against their palms, but heavy, a reminder of the abundance it contains. Step by step, they bring the jars to the gathering place where a large crater waits. Here the wine will be poured, mingled with fresh water in a ritual both practical and symbolic. To the Greeks, drinking unmixed wine was a sign of excess, of imbalance. Dionysus was not merely the god of wine's intoxication, but of its moderation, its harmony when tempered. The crater, deep and wide, stands ready to receive the offering, its rim already decorated with ivy leaves and small painted figures of satyrs. At the altar, the priest continues his quiet work. His hands move with care as he arranges offerings. Small bundles of ivy, their green leaves curling around one another, bowls of figs, sliced open to reveal their crimson interiors, and cups of wine poured slowly, a dark liquid glinting in the fading light. His face is calm, his gestures measured. This is not a moment of spectacle, but of reverence. Each placement carries meaning. Each item, whether humble or rich, is given as a bridge between the human and the divine. Around him, the villagers lend their hands where needed. A woman straightens the garlands strung across beams, her fingers brushing ivy and pine together into woven circles. A boy brings kindling for the altar fire, placing the wood gently, as though afraid to disturb the priest's rhythm. Even the smallest act feels like participation in something larger. For here, preparation is devotion, and devotion is expressed not in grand gestures but in the steady completion of tasks. The animals too sense the change. Goats are tethered more securely, their bells muffled for the night. Chickens are gathered into their pens, their soft clucks fading as the darkness deepens. Dogs, usually quick to bark at strangers, lie still near doorways, their ears pricked, watching. The village does not silence itself entirely, but it grows hushed, as though every living thing recognises that the ordinary flow of the day has shifted into something sacred. And still, preparations continue. Tables, rough-hewn and long, are pulled into the open square. Wooden benches are set beside them, their surfaces worn smooth by years of use. Upon the tables, cloths of linen are spread, their fibres coarse but clean, bleached by the sun in days before. On top of these, the first dishes are placed. Bowls of olives, black and green, their skins glistening with oil. Rounds of goat cheese, crumbly and sharp. Roasted fish, their skins crisped and salted, carried carefully from the hearths of nearby homes. Every item is simple, drawn from the earth and sea nearby, yet every item is offered in abundance. It is not luxury that defines the feast, but fullness. The sense that no one will leave hungry, no one will feel excluded. Children, eager to help, place small clay cups in neat rows, their fingers fumbling but persistent. They arrange them beside the crater, ready to be filled once the wine has been mixed. Some carry figs wrapped in leaves, others hand garlands to elders who will wear them in honour of Dionysus. Their laughter rises and falls like birdsong, scattered but joyful, a counterpoint to the steady hum of adult voices. As darkness deepens, torches are prepared. Wooden shafts wrapped in cloth are dipped into oil, then set upright against the walls until needed. Their flames will be lit when the feast begins in earnest, casting warm light across the square, pushing back the night. For now their presence alone is enough, a quiet reminder of what is to come. Finally, the preparations begin to slow. The breads have been baked, their golden crusts cooling on wooden trays. The honey cakes rest beside them, shining in the lamplight. Amphorae stand ready, their seals loosened, waiting to pour. The tables are filled, the altar adorned, the garlands swaying softly in the evening air. The villagers gather themselves, wiping flour from their arms, brushing dust from their tunics, adjusting the ivy crowns upon their brows. They pause, not because the work is done entirely, but because the moment has arrived. For the feast does not begin with sudden clamour. It begins, like all sacred things, with stillness. The village, prepared and waiting, holds itself in quiet anticipation. The god has not yet been invoked in voice or song, yet his presence is already felt in the bread, in the wine, in the garlands, in the hands that laboured to bring these simple gifts together. And so, as the final preparations are completed, the villagers stand on the edge of transformation. Tonight, their square will no longer be a place of ordinary passage, but a sanctuary of devotion. Every loaf, every grape, every torch has been prepared not simply for the sake of tradition, but as an act of connection between themselves, between their ancestors, and between the god who watches from the darkening sky. The square, prepared and waiting, begins to fill, slowly at first, as though the village inhales before exhaling its life into the open space. A family emerges from a narrow lane, carrying baskets draped with linen. Behind them, another follows, their footsteps measured, sandals brushing against the stone path. Soon, the trickle becomes a flow, neighbours stepping out from doorways, emerging from shadowed alleys, moving toward the same centre. The pace is unhurried. No one rushes. The feast is not a spectacle to be claimed quickly, but a gathering to be savoured, a return to something both sacred and familiar. Children hold onto their parents' hands, their ivy crowns slipping slightly as they tug along, eyes wide with the promise of sweet honey cakes and the glow of torches yet to be lit. Their laughter rises here and there, a soft counterpoint to the steady murmur of adult voices. From one side, the sound of reed flutes drifts into the air. A young player, seated upon a low stone wall, tests his notes gently, letting them carry across the square. The melody is not yet a song, but a simple rising and falling, a weaving of breath into sound. It settles like mist, blending with the rhythm of footsteps and the occasional bark of a dog lying watchfully nearby. Soon, another instrument joins. a lyre, its strings plucked with care, each note falling like droplets of water into a still pool. Music will accompany the feast, but for now it arrives tentatively, like the first stars in the evening sky. As the villagers gather, they greet one another with warmth, hands clasped, cheeks brushed, words of blessing exchanged. They have worked side by side through harvests, shared labours in fields and olive groves, endured seasons of drought and seasons of plenty. Tonight, those bonds are renewed not through toil, but through fellowship. The feast of Dionysus is not only an offering to the god, but a celebration of community itself. Baskets are set upon the long tables, their contents revealed slowly as cloths are lifted back. Figs, soft and dark, their insides glistening red like jewels. Wheels of goat cheese wrapped in leaves to keep them cool. Clay bowls of olives, black and green, gleaming with oil. A roasted fish, its skin crisp and curling, carried in with pride by a father and son. Each family contributes what they can, and together the tables grow abundant. The offerings are humble, yet when placed side by side they form a banquet worthy of divinity. At the centre of it all the great crater stands awaiting its purpose. Its wide mouth gapes like an invitation, ivy leaves twined around its rim, painted figures of satyrs dancing along its sides. One by one the amphorae of wine are opened, their seals broken, their contents poured in a slow, deliberate stream. The liquid shines deep red in the firelight, thick as it splashes against the walls of the vessel. Cool water follows, drawn freshly from the well, poured carefully until the balance is right. The priest watching nods in satisfaction. The wine is no longer solitary, but shared, tempered, made fit for human use. The children, impatient, crowd near the tables. They reach for figs, for bread, for the smallest sweet, only to be gently guided back by mothers and aunts. The feast has not yet begun. Ritual precedes indulgence. Yet even in waiting, there is joy. Their eyes sparkle as they watch the flutes and lyres, their fingers tugging at garlands, their feet tapping softly on the stone. The air grows thicker with scent. Roasting meats still arrive from homes at the edges of the village. Bread, still warm from ovens, is laid down beside cheeses and olives. The smoke of the altar fire curls higher, mingling with the oil lamps now lit in greater number, their flames trembling in the breeze. With each addition, the square transforms more fully. What was once a space for market and meeting is now a sanctuary of abundance. Neighbours who have not spoken in weeks pause to share words. Elders sit together, recalling feasts of their youth, their voices low but steady, their faces lined with memory. Young couples linger at the edge of the square, whispering in tones only they can hear. Farmers, weary from harvest, set aside their fatigue to laugh with companions. Every gesture is softened, slowed, as though time itself has stretched to accommodate this gathering. As twilight deepens, torches are lit. One by one, their flames catch, and golden light spills across the square. Shadows leap upon the walls, lengthening and bending with the flicker of fire. The stars above have grown brighter, scattered across a velvet sky. But here below it is the torches and lamps that hold the night at bay. The light touches the garlands of ivy, making them gleam with a green shimmer, and it glances off the crater where the wine waits glistening. The priest raises his hands, not in command, but in gentle signal. The murmurs quiet, the music softens. The villagers pause in place. There is no sudden silence, but a natural hush, a stillness settling over the gathering. At this moment, the community is complete. No one remains behind, all have come, each carrying their part, whether food, music, story, or presence alone. And in that stillness, there is a sense of arrival, not only of the people to the square, but of Dionysus himself, unseen yet present. For the god of wine is not found only in the drink or the song, but in the act of gathering, in the simple truth of humans drawn together. His presence is in the ivy swaying above, in the laughter of children, in the warmth of hands clasped in greeting. The villagers do not yet drink, they do not yet eat. That moment lies just ahead. For now, the gathering itself is the offering, the slow convergence of lives into a single space, the weaving of many voices into one steady hum, the transformation of ordinary night into sacred night. The square, once still, now breathes with life, and with each breath the feast draws closer. The moment arrives with quiet ceremony. The villagers, who had been standing or sitting in small clusters, now gather closer to the long wooden tables. The air is warm with torchlight and the sense of food, rich yet humble, rising together into the night. The priest, his face calm in the glow, takes a single cup of wine from the crater. He lifts it slowly, his hand steady, and pours a libation upon the earth. The liquid darkens the soil at the foot of the altar, sinking quickly into the ground. A gift returned to the god, the first portion always given away, always offered before any mortal lips may taste. Only then does the meal begin. The crater is approached by young men chosen to serve. Their task is not hurried but deliberate, each cup filled in turn with care. They draw the mixture with a long-handled ladle, polished bronze glinting in the torchlight, and pour it into Kylix cups. The wine, now softened with water, gleams deep red as it catches the firelight. It is carried down the tables, placed before each villager, until no one is left without. There is no haste to drink. Each waits, holding the cup lightly until all are ready. Then, as though guided by the same breath, the cups are lifted, not in silence, but in a soft murmur of words, blessing spoken, thanks given. The first sip is taken together, a slow savouring of the cool liquid, the taste of grape and earth and time itself upon the tongue. This too is an offering. Each swallow binds the villagers not only to Dionysus but to one another, for to drink alone would be solitude. To drink together is communion. The bread follows. Loaves are broken by hand, their crusts still warm, their insides soft and fragrant. Pieces are passed from neighbour to neighbour, shared in quiet generosity. Fingers dip into bowls of olive oil, golden and shimmering, touched with herbs. Bread and oil together, humble yet enduring, a staple as old as the people themselves. Children chew slowly, their eyes closing in pleasure at the simple taste. Elders nod, their faces lit with remembrance of countless feasts past. Other dishes appear, carried carefully from baskets and bowls. Figs, cut open to reveal their crimson hearts, glisten in the lamplight. Their sweetness bursts upon the tongue, soft and rich, a taste both earthly and divine. Goat cheese, sharp and crumbly, balances the figs with its tang, spread upon bread or eaten in small pieces. Roasted fish, its skin crisp and salted, is shared among families, the flesh tender beneath its char. Olives, dark and briny, are picked one by one, their flavour lingering with each bite. The square fills with the sound of quiet eating. Not silence, but a gentle rhythm. The breaking of bread, the clink of cups upon wood, the murmur of conversation. A child laughs as honey drips down his fingers. A woman leans toward her neighbour offering a slice of cheese. A man raises his cup slightly in silent toast, before drinking again. The feast is not about indulgence or excess, but about presence. Each taste savoured, each gesture made with care. As the night deepens, the air itself seems flavoured by the meal. Smoke from the altar mingles with the scent of bread and roasted fish. Torches crackle softly, their light dancing upon ivy garlands swaying in the breeze. The villagers eat not quickly but steadily, each course unfolding as though guided by time itself. Between bites, stories are exchanged. Farmers speak of harvest completed, of vines heavy with grapes, of olives pressed into oil. Mothers speak of children grown taller, of daily labours at the hearth. Elders recall feasts of long ago, their voices slow and measured, their eyes glimmering with memory. Every word, every exchange is softened by the rhythm of eating together. The wine flows gently, never in haste, always poured with balance. Each refill from the crater is measured, ensuring that the drink remains shared, tempered, never overwhelming. Dionysus is present not in wild abandon, but in harmony, in the steady blending of water and wine, of laughter and quiet, of joy and restraint. The children, their hunger satisfied, grow drowsy. Some rest their heads upon their mother's laps, fingers still sticky with honey. Others lean against their father's shoulders, eyes heavy with sleep. Their garlands slip, ivy leaves tumbling softly to the ground. The square is no longer filled with their laughter, but with the low hum of voices, the gentle murmur of adults at ease. At the altar the priest tends the fire. He adds a small branch of ivy, its leaves curling quickly in the heat, releasing a faint fragrance as they burn. The smoke drifts upward, carrying with it the essence of the offerings, a bridge between human and divine. For a moment, villagers glance toward it, reminded that this meal is not only theirs but shared with the god who watches over them. The meal stretches on, unhurried. There is no signal to end, no rush to clear the tables. Instead, food is taken as long as hunger remains, wine poured as long as thirst lingers. Conversations rise and fall like waves upon a shore, gentle, rhythmic, never breaking into chaos. The square becomes a place of harmony, where every gesture, every sound, every taste weaves together into a tapestry of devotion. And as the meal continues, a sense of fullness settles, not only in stomachs but in spirits. The villagers are nourished not just by bread and wine, but by the presence of one another, by the quiet joy of belonging. Each person, from child to elder, has a place at the table. Each hand that reaches for bread finds it. Each cup lifted in toast is met by another. This is the sacred meal of Dionysus. Not frenzy, not excess, but abundance shared, harmony lived. In the stillness of night, under the gaze of stars and torches, the god of the vine is honoured most truly not in shouts or wild dances, but in the simple act of eating together. The square glows with light, hums with voices, breathes with life, and in that glow, that hum, that breath, Dionysus is present, quietly, calmly, as much in the bread and oil as in the wine, as much in the silence between words as in the words themselves. The meal begins to fade into stillness. Bowls, once brimming, are now half empty, loaves of bread reduced to scattered crusts. The crater stands lighter than before, though its depth still holds enough to refill cups as needed. The air is warm with the scents of wine, oil and smoke, woven together into a fragrance that belongs only to evenings like this. It is then that the music begins in earnest. The young flute player, who earlier tested his notes in the twilight, now lifts the reed to his lips with purpose. A soft tone spills forth, high but gentle, like a bird calling in the quiet night. The melody drifts across the square, winding slowly between the tables, curling upward toward the ivy garlands and torches. It is not music for dancing, not yet. It is music for listening, for breathing, for allowing the mind to wander. Nearby, another takes up the lyre. Its wooden frame rests lightly against his chest, strings plucked with care. Each note joins the flute, the two voices mingling like water and wine. The sound is modest, not grand, but it fills the air in just the right measure. No one speaks loudly over it. Conversations soften, words falling into rhythm with the music, pauses lingering longer than before. Children, half asleep, shift on their mother's laps, lulled by the harmony. As the song continues, a drum joins in, nothing sharp or quick, but a low, steady beat struck with the palm of a hand. It does not dominate, but supports, a heartbeat beneath the flute and lyre, grounding them in the pulse of the earth. Together the three sounds weave a tapestry of calm, carrying the listeners deeper into the night. When the song fades, the silence that follows is not empty but rich, a silence filled with the memory of sound. Into that stillness, a storyteller rises. He is an elder, his hair silver, his eyes lined with the wisdom of years. The villagers know his voice, they have heard it at feasts before, and they welcome it now with quiet anticipation. He does not raise his tone, but speaks as though to each listener directly, his words carried easily in the hush of the night. He tells of Dionysus, not the god of frenzy and wild ecstasy, but the wanderer, the giver, the one who brought the vine to humankind. He speaks of how Dionysus travelled far, crossing seas and mountains, teaching the planting of vines and the tending of grapes. He tells how the god gifted wine not as a snare but as a blessing, a drink that could soften sorrow, ease the burdens of labour, and bind communities together. The villagers listen, cups in hand, eyes on the storyteller's face or drifting toward the flames. Each word seems to stretch, lingering in the air before falling softly like petals upon the ground. Children lean against their parents, their lids heavy, their minds weaving dreams from the images of the tale. Elders nod, hearing not only the story but the memory of having heard it before, many times, across many feasts. When the elder rests, another voice takes up the task. This time it is a younger man, his tone lighter, more playful. He speaks not of the god himself, but of the satyrs, mischievous creatures said to follow Dionysus in his wanderings. He tells how they danced clumsily in the forests, how they chased one another through the vineyards, how their laughter rang out beneath the trees. The listeners smile, some chuckle softly, not at frenzy but at the gentle humour of the tale. Another story follows, and then another, each offered like a cup of wine, passed slowly from one to the next. They are not hurried, pauses stretch between them, filled with the crackle of torches and the whisper of night breezes through ivy leaves. Each story settles into the square, layering itself upon the meal, upon the music, upon the gathering itself. At times the music returns, a flute played softly between stories, a lyre stringed lightly as though to underline the words. The drum keeps its heartbeat steady, reminding the listeners of the earth beneath them, the rhythm that endures no matter how the stories flow. The night sky deepens overhead. Stars, countless now, shine like silver dust across the darkness. Among them, familiar patterns emerge. The hunter Orion striding across the heavens, the cluster of the Pleiades faint but steady, the curve of Perseus lifting his sword. To the villagers, these are not distant lights, but stories written across the firmament, stories that mirror the ones spoken below. The two realms, sky and earth, myth and meal, blend seamlessly in this moment, each reflecting the other. As the storytelling continues, a subtle shift occurs. The feast is no longer about food or wine alone, but about memory, imagination, and the weaving of lives into something greater than themselves. Dionysus, though unseen, is present in the laughter at Satyrs' mischief, in the hush as a tale of wandering ends, in the soft sigh of a child asleep beneath the stars. The villagers do not measure time. They do not glance at the heavens to see how far the night has passed. For in the rhythm of music and story, time is both stretched and dissolved. Each moment lingers, and yet the hours slip by unnoticed. And when finally a long silence falls, unbroken by flute or lyre or voice, it is not uneasy. It is the silence of fullness, of contentment, of a community that has spoken, sung, listened and shared together. The torches still burn, though their flames are lower now, their smoke curling upward more lazily. The crater holds less wine, the bowls less food, but abundance has already been given and received. The square breathes in quiet harmony. Music and storytelling have carried the feast into its heart, and though more may yet follow, the villagers feel no need for urgency. The night itself seems to rest alongside them, holding them gently in its embrace. The night has deepened. The sky above is now a vast expanse of indigo, strewn with stars like a scattering of silver dust. The torches that had blazed brightly at the height of the feast now burn lower, their flames smaller, their light softer, casting long shadows that sway gently on the walls of the square. The air, once filled with music and voices, has quieted into a tender hush. The priest tends the altar one last time. He stirs the embers with a wooden branch, coaxing the final glow from what remains of the fire. The smoke rises in thin strands, delicate and fading, as though carrying with it the last of the villagers' offerings to the heavens. A final cup of wine is poured upon the ground, a libation to seal the night. Then the fire is left to dwindle, the altar settling into silence. Around the tables the meal has ended. Bowls lie empty or nearly so, loaves reduced to crumbs, fig skins curled and drying where they have been left behind. The crater, once full to its wide mouth, now holds only a shallow pool of wine, its surface dark and still. What remains will not be wasted, but for now it is enough to let it rest, the vessel itself standing as a symbol of abundance shared and savoured. The villagers lean back, their bodies eased by fullness, their spirits softened by fellowship. Conversations continue in low tones, voices carrying no urgency, only the comfort of familiar company. Some sit in clusters, still sharing stories or recalling fragments of songs. Others grow quiet, their gazes drifting toward the star-filled sky, their minds wandering in silence. Children, long past the edge of wakefulness, sleep against their parents' laps or on the benches, their limbs heavy and relaxed. One lies curled upon a cloak spread on the ground, ivy garland slipping from his hair, his breathing steady and deep. Another clings faintly to his mother's arm, fingers still sticky with honey, head pressed against her shoulder. Their rest is undisturbed, watched over by the community as naturally as by their parents alone. The musicians too rest now. The flute lies upon a low wall, its notes still echoing faintly in memory. The lyre has been set aside, its strings silent but resonant in the air. The drum sits near the fire pit, its skin faintly glimmering in torchlight, its heartbeat stilled. Music has given way to stillness, and the stillness is its own kind of song. As the feast quiets, the square itself changes character. What had been a place of laughter, of food and music, now feels like a resting ground, a space of calm release. Torches crackle softly, their flames bending in the night breeze. The ivy garlands, which earlier danced with life, now hang still, their shadows long and faint upon the stone. Even the air carries a softness, cool now, with a faint trace of the sea that lies not too far beyond the hills. Neighbours begin to draw close to one another, not in conversation but in shared presence. An elder rests his head upon his folded arms, content simply to sit in silence. Two women sit side by side, their shoulders touching lightly, their words no longer spoken aloud but understood nonetheless. A farmer stretches out upon the ground itself, his cloak pulled beneath him, his eyes closing as he breathes in the scent of the earth, steady and grounding. The sense of Dionysus remains. It is no longer in the wine, though the taste lingers faintly on the tongue. It is no longer in the music, though the melodies hover in memory. Instead, it is in the quiet harmony itself, the way the villagers breathe together, the way their hearts beat in a slower, gentler rhythm. Dionysus is present in the fullness that rests not in frenzy, but in peace, in the trust that allows a community to fall into stillness beneath the stars. Above, the constellations glow more brightly. Orion strides across the heavens, the Pleiades cluster faintly at his shoulder. The Milky Way stretches pale and shimmering, a river of light flowing across the sky. For the villagers lying back upon benches, upon cloaks, upon bare stone, these stars are not distant. They are companions, guardians, a reminder that the divine watches over even the quietest hours of night. The sounds of the village beyond the square are muted now. Goats lie settled in their pens, their bells silent. Dogs curl against doorways, their breathing steady. Even the crickets, whose chorus filled the early evening, seem to have softened, their rhythm gentler now, as though in respect for the hush of the feast's end. One by one, torches are extinguished. A man dips his fingers into a clay jar of water and presses them to the base of a flame. Another lowers his torch into the earth, smothering it with a handful of sand. Each light fades slowly, leaving behind only a faint curl of smoke, until the square glows not with fire but with starlight alone. The villagers remain, some still seated, some lying back, all embraced by the night. And in that dimness sleep begins to spread. A child first, then a mother, then an elder, each closing their eyes and surrendering to the calm. Sleep is not resisted but welcomed, as natural as the rising of the sun, as steady as the turning of the seasons. Cloaks are pulled around shoulders, heads lean against arms, bodies shift into rest. The square, once alive with sound and light, becomes a sanctuary of slumber. Only the stars and the faint glow of embers remain, watching silently. The night holds the villagers gently, wrapping them in its quiet vastness. Dionysus, the god who had been honoured with bread, wine, music, and story, now lingers in their dreams, a presence of peace as much as joy. No one signals the end, no voice calls for dispersal. Instead, the feast dissolves naturally into rest, the community drifting together into sleep. What began with preparation and offering, with bread and wine, with music and storytelling, now concludes in stillness, the simplest gift of all. And so the square rests. The torches are gone, the garlands sway faintly in the breeze, the tables are marked with crumbs and empty cups. Above, the stars continue their slow journey across the heavens, indifferent yet constant. Below, the villagers sleep, their breathing soft and even, their bodies at ease. This is the final blessing of Dionysus. Not frenzy, not ecstasy, but release. Release from labour, release from care, release into the deep calm of shared rest. The feast has given abundance, the night now gives peace. Together they cradle the villagers until dawn. The village lies in silence now. What began with the slow rhythm of preparation and the rising smoke of offerings has unfolded into a night of abundance, of stories, and of shared presence. The bread has been broken, the wine poured, the songs sung, the tales told, and now, beneath the wide sky of Greece, the villagers rest in the calm that follows fullness. The god of the vine has been honoured, not in shouts or in wild abandon, but in the gentler offerings of community. Dionysus has received his libations in the earth, his garlands of ivy, his songs carried softly into the night air. And in return he has given what he always offers most quietly, the gift of harmony, of connection, of release. Around the square, the last torches have faded, their smoke long dissolved into the air. What remains is starlight, spread generously across the heavens, silver dust scattered over an indigo expanse. It is a light that needs no tending, no hand to feed it, steady and eternal. For the villagers lying beneath it, this light is enough, a reminder that above the rhythms of work and feast, of birth and passing, there remains the eternal watch of the heavens. The embers of the altar glow faintly, a final trace of fire lingering at the heart of the square. Their warmth is small now, but steady, like the last note of a song that continues to resonate long after it has ended. In that glow lies the memory of the night, the bread, the figs, the wine, the music, the laughter, the silence. All of it lives on in the warmth of those dying coals, and so the village sleeps. Children rest in their mother's arms, elders lean into the comfort of stillness, neighbours lie side by side upon the earth itself. Their breathing rises and falls in unison, a chorus more tender than any song. The god is with them still, not in frenzy, but in dreams, where his presence drifts like ivy through their thoughts, gentle and steady. Tomorrow the village will wake, the square will be cleared, the tables taken away, the garlands dried and set aside. Life will return to its usual rhythm, the tending of fields, the baking of bread, the pressing of olives, the gathering of water. Yet the memory of this night will linger, a thread woven into the fabric of their days, a reminder that beneath their labours lies a deeper current of joy, of belonging, of the divine moving quietly through ordinary life. And for you, the listener, let the quiet of this night remain. Let the torches burn low in your imagination. Let the flute's song linger softly in your thoughts. Let the taste of figs and honey rest faintly upon your tongue. Allow the stars above the village to become the stars above you, constant and watchful, cradling you as they cradled the villagers long ago. For the feast has ended, the music has stilled, and the square has grown silent. It is time now to follow the villagers into rest, to breathe slowly, to let your body sink into calm, to drift into the stillness that Dionysus offers, not of frenzy, but of peace. Sleep gently as they did, under the watch of the stars.